more load. So that's a pretty massive thing.
In other words, there would have to be forces to pull this thing apart, which are not light.
You'd have to be ripping it up like this
Right.
when it's all lateral load. And they're clamped tight, so you have that frictional force holding it together.
And if it's a lateral load or a side shaking,
Right.
It would have to be such a force to actually try to move the shear beam in order to shear the bolts themselves.
You basically have to start lifting them up, and that is a tremendous amount of force.
So what happens if some of them break? What's the next step?
Well, what we're doing is, what we're trying to do is qualify what could happen. So as you load it up under a condition where you're trying to create corrosion, you're trying to create hydrogen, and you slowly load it, and you can get a feel for at what load this might become susceptible if there's enough hydrogen in the material. Now what we're doing here is it's extremely accelerated. It takes years and decades for that kind of hydrogen to get inside the bar from stress corrosion cracking, because you have to get past the galvanization, you get to the base metal, you got to start corroding it, you got to create that galvanized cell to start that work, and we're trying to do that on an accelerated basis here. So if a bar were to have a problem somewhere in here, that's decades out. These bars may have no problems, they may be just fine.
So
that's
how
what
long
we're trying
does
to
it
qualify.
take for you to test them to find out? You said you're accelerating
It's just
it.
under a month. It's about how many days
23
total?
days.
23 days total. Every step is 2 days, 48 hours, to the last step is 5 days.
So 23-day process mimics a 20-year process out in the
I
real
can't
world.
equate that to 20 years. I
But
can just say it's decades out. You need all the right
decades.
things to come together, but that's a decades problem.
How many rods are you testing altogether?
What's the total number we're testing?
Well, we're testing 4 of
Step up
these.
here.
Yeah, please come in. So we're testing, we've got this set up here for 4 rods. We're doing the so-called 2010 rods. And then we've got another 7 slabs here for 7 other rods from other parts of the bridge. And then there's 2 more slabs that we're planning on some other rods to test. So that's 13 total right there. But then we're also getting some new material to replace the rods we pulled out of the bridge. And we're going to do additional tests on those. It's going to be a lot, 2,000 or so.
So you're testing 24 rods.
Around there. The test program isn't all final yet.
And how long will this process of testing them take?
Many months.
So it starts today and it's going to take months.
Yeah, they're not all tested at the same time.
And these rods are actually installed in the bridge, or these rods are not installed? I mean, physically, how do you get at these rods?
Some rods are in service right now, right? The 2010 rods, they are in service. We took 4 out. Other locations, we've taken rods out. So we've cut pieces of rod that are no longer needed, longer tails, and some we've taken out. We've taken a tower base rod out. We've taken 2010 rods out and a few others. So we're going to actually take pieces off the bridge and go test them here. But they are in service right now.
These are not the rods. So the problems with these rods, these are not the ones that we pulled up in the Oakland Bridge. In fact, these are the
No,
ones
these-
that we replaced over a period
This
of
is a
time.
decades issue. Decades out. It's not will not hold up the opening of the bridge. These rods, no.
So
This just gives us information now to decide what we want to do in the future.
So the point is, the more you test, the more confident you are that
Yes, that's correct.
If one of those rods, if the base rod shows a problem, how do you replace those rods? They're at the base of the tower.
That's where you go back to design. Design has to evaluate what does that mean. Does that mean the rod's going to come out? Does that mean it's stable as it is? Does that mean you reduce tension? Because what you're going to find here is, as you load it, you're going to find what tension it's going to want to break, if it ever wants to break. And that gives you a lot of information to make a lot of decisions on what you want to do in the future.
So the significance of this is what? What is the significance of doing this testing in the end?
This will tell you if you have a problem in the future. If in the future you could have a corrosion issue that could cause rods to break. That's what it's going to tell you. But again, that's a decades problem. It's not an immediate concern. It's something we just have to deal with.
Can you just step back a minute for people who are not engineers, people who have not been following this story very closely?
Right.
In the simplest terms, not so technical, but something we can use to the viewers and listeners who are just out there. What are you doing today? Would you normally be doing this? Just why? Really, really simple. And I understand the bolts snap, and so but help us out here a little bit, because I can't use anything you've said so far.
Let me see if I can. Basically, what you have with stress corrosion, right? That's the term, stress corrosion. It's basically you've all seen a bolt somewhere that has rust on it, right? And that rust creates hydrogen. It's created by water. Water is hydrogen. water gets on the material and starts rusting, that's hydrogen. Hydrogen gets inside the material, okay? Now, it will do nothing unless that material is susceptible to that, the presence of hydrogen, meaning is the material of such quality that hydrogen can cause a problem. And the only time it causes a problem is you stop pulling on it. And you stop pulling on it. And what that hydrogen does, it goes inside the steel and goes to the grain boundaries of the grains of the steel and starts weakening those boundaries. And as you put stress on it, a load, force on it, it'll eventually pop. That's what stress corrosion does. That's probably the simplest way I can explain it.
And would you be doing this test anyway, or are you doing this because of the bolt snapping?
We're doing this because this particular material. This is the A354 grade VD material, and that is a material that we want to make sure we don't have a problem with. Lesser grade materials, lesser strength materials don't have these issues. This particular material does.
So you are doing it.